Questions of policy are the third type of question that we can address with a persuasive speech. And they're slightly different than questions of fact and value. And the big difference is that they're focused on changing behaviors, not attitudes and beliefs. And that's because they focus on action. A policy is any action. We often talk about policies in relation to legislation, and that's true. Legislation is a type of action. However, our decision about what we're going to have for dinner tonight is also an action. So if I argue that we should go get pizza tonight, that is a statement of policy because it is an attempt to have some sort of behavior take place. There's an action at the focus for that question. And here's why we focus on action. It's because questions of policy are usually related to solving some sort of problem, and we need to take action in order to address that problem. So in order to get to action, we need to be able to focus on influencing behavior. When we influence that behavior, we can hopefully achieve the action that we want, and as a result, solve that problem. We've seen lots of different examples of questions of policy, questions about whether we should sign a treaty with Iran, questions about whether we should bomb Syria, questions about whether we should have universal health care or the Affordable Care Act or none of those things. Those are all questions of policy because they involve legislative action. But do keep in mind that questions of policy are anything involving some sort of action, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with legislation. To relate to our running example of the cap and trade system in the United States, an example of a statement of policy with regard to that example would be the United States should enact a cap and trade program. Now, this is different from the question of whether or not the cap and trade program would be effective at limiting carbon emissions. Now, the effectiveness of the cap and trade program may be a reason why we need to enact it, but again, this is a question of policy, and we're relating that policy to a behavior to solve a problem. So we want to word our statement so that it is a statement of policy rather than a statement of fact. Again, the United States should enact a cap and trade program. That is our statement of policy, and it focuses on an action that we can take to solve the problem of global warming.